Look, I've been known to have a not great opinion on Devon AI and Cognition. I think this is very misleading. That they have some amazing thing, but they're not letting anybody use it. They probably don't have something as amazing as they're saying they do. Oh, if you're so proud that you raised $21 million and you have an AI software engineer, couldn't you either use some of those $21 million or your AI software engineer to build a website that's not just black text on a white background with almost nothing there? But to my surprise, they actually did release a product, so let's give it a try, give it a fair shot, see if it's any good. All right, so this is the website for Devon. So already it looks a lot better than it used to. So good step forward there. And it says Devon is a collaborative AI teammate. Wait, hold on. Does this follow my mouse? These little animations? I don't know how well that shows up on camera for y'all or in the screen recording, but that's pretty cool. Okay, so anyways, let's scroll down. Wait, hold on. The scroll bar with this sort of moving as I scroll, that's actually pretty good. I don't like that I like this website so much, but this is well made. Good job, Devon. Or I don't know if Devon made this or if just some front-end engineer at Cognition made this, but clean website. All right, so anyways, I guess this is what the workspace looks like. We'll see that in a minute. Little scroll bar over here. Wait, okay, I might have to take back my golf clap. This doesn't work. I can't click on this and scroll. So I just have to like slowly scroll through this to keep going down. But okay. Ooh, that's a nice animation. Why is there a white box? But ooh, okay. That's pretty clean. All right, now we're down here to some use cases. So we can do code migration and refactor. Already, I like this better because last time it felt like they were pushing so hard that they've built an AI software engineer that can do a little bit of everything. Starting out with, hey, we can do code migration and refactor. Much better because frankly, that's something that they probably can do because most AI tools are getting pretty good at that. And those are the types of things that developers don't want to do and that AI can reliably do pretty well. But anyways, we have bug and backlog work, data engineering and analysis, app development, personal assistant tasks, and many others. Okay, so they are still claiming it can do pretty much everything, but I do like that at least the first things it's showcasing are things that AI tends to actually be better at. Okay, let's see what else they say. Learn and work together. Okay, cool. Able to work with hundreds of tools. All right. Fair enough. And then build with Devon, or industry leaders choose to build with Devon. I don't really like the way they did this because my mind wants to read the big text first and this text second, even though it's above it, and it makes like a weird mental thing when you read it. But anyways, they're claiming MongoDB, Microsoft, Ramp, a bunch of companies are using Devon. I don't love this because I feel like this is making implications that while what they're saying is probably objectively true, the implications feel less true. Like, is Microsoft using Devon? Maybe like somebody, right? Like maybe somebody at Microsoft is testing it and whatnot. But if you went to your average Microsoft engineer and say, have you ever used Devon? The answer is going to be no. They've probably used GitHub Copilot a lot and other tools that are approved within Microsoft, but I can't imagine that Devon is approved to widely use across Microsoft. And sort of the same for a lot of these companies, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're all using Devon a ton. I don't work at those companies, but just sort of my hunch that this feels a tad misleading. It's probably more so that industry leaders are choosing to try out Devon, and maybe a few of them are actually using it. But okay, let's see actually customers. What do they say? We have this guy, case study. What do they say about Microsoft? Devon is an absolutely amazing tool from Kevin Scott, the CEO or CTO of Microsoft. All right, I'm curious, when did Kevin Scott say this? Kevin Scott. All right, it looks like he said it at the speech. Devon. All right, their product Devon is an absolutely amazing tool. Okay, guess he did actually say it. If you can imagine for yourself some of the most tedious things that you do as an engineer or a software developer, Devon is a tool designed to help with those tasks. All right, Azure. It looks like they're building Devon on Azure, so a little bit of a conflict of interest. Devon is a client of Microsoft is the way I'm interpreting this, but okay, maybe Microsoft likes Devon. Lumos, we try to make low-cost reversible decisions really quickly, and Devon makes more decisions that type of decision, and Devon makes more decisions that type of, what does that mean? I don't know if this is a typo on the website or what he said and I'm misunderstanding it. But anyways, I can work on stuff and kick off Devon tasks in parallel. It's cool to see PR after PR come in. Okay. OpenC, Devon has really redefined what we thought was possible, especially with recent Slack integration. Whether it's debugging, prototyping, or front-end updates, Devon is constantly stepping up and consistently improving. Isn't OpenC the like the NFT marketplace? But okay, this guy's the CEO of OpenC, so it does seem like some people are using Devon. So let's give it a shot. How much does Devin cost? Pricing. Choose a plan that's right for you. All right, so we have enterprise custom pricing and team $500 a month. That's a lot. This video has no sponsor for what it's worth, so I appreciate you all watching, but I guess we're going to pay $500 a month. To be fair, if Devin does the things that they claim Devin can do, $500 a month is not that bad of a price tag, right? If it can actually do what they say. I'm not confident that that's going to be the case, and most of their competitors are free or very cheap, so $500 a month feels steep, but at the same time, if it's meant for big corporations, it's not really meant for individual use. I guess it makes a little bit of sense. So okay, let's get started. So I'm going to create an account and all that, and I'll get back to y'all when I've wasted $500. I mean, spent $500. All right, so I'm here on the checkout page. You can see it's $500 like they say, but interesting note here, it does say Devin additional usage. Price varies $2 per ACU. I'm assuming that's some kind of credit unit. So just note that you can go over whatever amount of credits they've allocated to you, and you can actually end up spending a lot more. So be careful if you do actually decide to pay for this. But anyways, subscribe, $500. All right, so actually here it says, in addition to your monthly subscription, we ask that you set a monthly additional usage budget. I like that they do this immediately after having you pay. They have you set a budget of what is the max that you can charge. I'm going to put $0 because I don't want to spend extra money. So I've spent enough on this video, so let's leave it at that. Okay, so we have 0 extra ACUs. And it did say, I think you get 250 by default. Yeah, so you have 250. I don't know exactly what an ACU actually is, but hopefully we can stay under 250. If I do need more, I guess I'll pay for it. All right, we'd love to share tips for working together. Book an optional onboarding session with a Cognition team member. We'll give you 50 free ACUs after the call. I don't think I need that. Finally, here are some important things to know about working with me. I work best when you give me detailed junior level tasks. Tell me how to test my work. Break down the tasks longer than 3 hours. Does this mean like things that would take me 3 hours or things that would take you 3 hours? Because I don't know what takes Devin 3 hours, but okay. Provide clear requirements, help improve my knowledge base, okay? Good tasks, small front-end bugs or edge cases, creating first drafts of backlog work, try handing me tasks from your to-do list at the start of the day, and targeted code refactors, try using Devin IDE extension for VS Code and forks. Okay, start using Devin. Hey there, Connor. Like any new engineer, I'll need help with my onboarding. Let's get things set up so I can start contributing. Connect to GitHub. All right, connect to GitHub. All right, then you can connect Slack. I don't actually really want to do this, so I'm just going to skip Slack. Invite teammates. It's just me. Skip. Set up your first repository. So let's use the Tetris React repository, which is one I made in another video where we used React to build a clone of Tetris. And it's a good, like decently sized repository that I think also has a lot of room for improvements. So we can see if Devin's able to improve it for us. So let's set up this repo. All right. So I don't know what exactly is happening here. So we have like VS Code here. This is just the repository? I guess, yeah, it is. And then we have just like a browser. All right. So clone, it's already cloned. I'm kind of confused. Does it want me to do that for it? I guess it wants me to just do this, npm install. I'm kind of confused what exactly it wants me to do here, but I guess that's what it wants me to do, is just install the dependencies like that. I don't know. I don't understand why it doesn't figure out how to do this on its own. Okay, 10 vulnerabilities. But maybe we can have Devin fix these vulnerabilities. 4 moderate, 5 high, 1 critical. Okay, let's say I've installed dependencies. I don't think there are any lint or test on here, so this is fine. We don't need to worry about these things because I'm not going to be pushing to the repository, I don't think. Delivery, teach Devin about working with this repository. Tell Devin how to verify and submit changes to this repository. Devin will always see these instructions when working in Tetris React. Advise on how to run tests, formatting, linting commands, PR format expectations, when to wait for CI. Okay, let me take a minute to read this and get back to it. All right, so I give it some pretty basic instructions. I said to test the code, just run npm run dev and manually try the code in the browser in a local dev server. And then I said there are currently no tests in the repo because there's not. Maybe I'll have Devin actually try to make some tests for us. That could be interesting. Then the repo uses ESLint. So I said to always run ESLint before making a pull request and create all updates in a new branch and make PRs. Let's say save. Okay, let's do finish and finish setup. Don't mind me, I'll just wait. All right, so that took like a minute or two, but that's fine. And it gives me this example prompt to just ask Devin to verify that it can access the repo, run lint, and open a dummy draft PR. So let's actually just try that. So I'm going to run this. Okay, so now we're here. Okay, congrats on starting your first session. I'm excited to work with you. Here's some things to know about working with me. Try tagging at Devin in Slack. I'm not gonna do that. I can make draft PRs of backlog work. You can hand off tech debt to me from VS Code. Okay, we're not gonna use the VS Code extension either. Just gonna do it in here. All right, so it's verifying it as access to the repo, running running lint and creating a draft PR. All right, so I guess we just watch. Devin, okay. What are we running here? We're doing lots of things. We have package JSON. We're reading that. That's good. All right, we ran ESLint. It keeps saying Devin is working or awaiting your response, but it's not actually asking for me to do anything. So it's just working, I guess. And we are updating the README. Okay, I like this PR we're making. We're just adding to the README some instructions. It's good. And we're creating a branch. What do we call it? Update README, I guess. We added a PR description. Okay. Oh, here we go. Created PR. Oh, we're still going. I guess we're checking that it's not failing any tests or something. Created a draft pull request for adding local development. Devin is working or waiting a response. Ran. Oh, okay. Here we go. I've successfully completed all of the requested verifications, repository access, lint check, draft PR creation. All right. So let's review this PR. Okay. Here we go. Docs. Add local development instructions. Add local development instructions to README. Changes. Added development section to README. Added a step-by-step instructions for local setup. All right. Files changed. Fair enough. Seems good to me. This PR draft pull request can't be merged. So why is this a draft pull request? I've never actually used a pull request on this repository, but okay, let's approve it. And is it going to allow me? Does Devin have to make this not a draft? I'm not sure. So let's go here. All right, so let's say I approved the PR. Can you merge it, please? Devin is thinking. I'll merge the approved PR right away. Okay. All right, so it's actually going to run into an issue here. So I guess it doesn't have access to merge the PR. I'm not allowed to merge directly into the main branch as per my security restrictions. This is a safety measure put in place by my creators. Could you merge the PR yourself? The changes have been approved and are ready to be merged. All right, so it's still a draft, I believe. So I'm going to tell Devin the PR is a draft PR. How do I merge that? Let's see if it can tell me how to do it. I'm actually not 100% sure. I don't really use the GitHub UI. I'm not sure if I can make somebody else's draft PR like not a draft, or I don't even fully know what the draft PR thing is, to be honest. I've marked the PR as ready for review. So let's go back here. Okay, so now we can actually merge it. So let's say merge pull request, confirm changes, and successfully merged. Cool. And we can delete this branch that Devin created. Let's go back to the code. So now we should have this, and we have this pull request from Devin AI integration bot. All right, so I'm going to start a new session. And what I wanted to do now is to try to fix the security vulnerabilities that NPM told me I had. So the repo has security issues when you run npm install. Please fix all of these and create a PR that's ready for review. And let's run this and let's see what Devin can do. All right, so we ran npm audit fix and revealed 10 vulnerabilities, including 1 critical and severity issues, all of which can be fixed with npm audit fix. I'll now check the package JSON to understand the current dependency structure and version constraints before testing can be done with npm run dev. Okay, all right, so came up with a plan, run npm audit fix, review package JSON, and then verify changes by running the app locally, run ESLint, and create a PR for review. And it's now executing the plan. It's kind of cool that you can just like watch it do this. Like, is this quicker than me doing it myself? No, but it's kind of fun to watch. So I'm kind of enjoying this. I don't like when it does stuff. It doesn't always like auto scroll. Like I'm having to go to my mouse and scroll down so that we can see what it's doing. I don't know why it's doing that, but that's okay. I'm curious to what degree it's able to test this, and it's kind of my fault that there's just no tests in this repository. But I'm curious to what degree it's able to test this just by like going to the browser and making sure it works. Because how does it know what exactly it working means? But it's kind of my fault for having a repository with no tests in it and not really having good instructions for what it working means. All right, so we did ESLint, which passed, and then we did npm run dev. Is it actually doing anything to test that it's actually working, or is it just like making sure that it's able to run dev? Okay, it is on the Tetris page, so this is the game. I'm curious, is it going to play the game? Are we going to play Tetris, or are we just going to look at it? What are we going to do, Devin? That is kind of cool that it was able to actually navigate to the website. Okay, so we viewed the console to make sure there's no issues there. Are we going to click new game and actually play the game? We are not. It does note a 404 error for the favicon. Valid. I don't think we have one. I'm curious if it's going to try to fix that, or if it's just going to leave it alone, or if it's going to ask me about it. Curious what it's going to do. All right, so we are pushing changes. All right, so Devin made a PR. For what it's worth, it says that this is at, all right, so the PR is ready for review. For what it's worth, this is at 12:59, and initially I started this at 12:54, so it took 5 minutes to do this, which I could have been doing other things while this was doing it, but this also would have taken me all of 45 seconds to do myself. But anyways, let's review this pull request. All right, so we fixed known vulnerabilities. The following updates were made. Critical, so we updated Babel Traverse. High, we updated a bunch of other stuff, and moderate, more updates. Okay, so we basically just updated stuff. Files changed is going to be just package lock. Why was package.json not updated? I'm curious if we load the diff. maybe it doesn't need to be, but I would have thought we would have updated package.json as well. Maybe I'm wrong though. I actually don't know the answer to that. So what I'm actually going to do is, can you confirm that npm install no longer has the issues? So before I merge the PR, I'm going to ask it to confirm in this way. Okay, interesting. So there were some deprecation warnings, but it says they don't affect security or functionality of the application. So I guess it ignored them and the other vulnerabilities are gone. Okay, so let's go ahead and merge this PR for Devin. So merge pull request. And I suppose we don't need to update the package JSON. So makes sense. All right, so far so good with Devin. Now this repository has no tests in it, like I said. So let's ask Devin to write some tests. So let's say, can you add some tests to the repo to ensure that the Tetris app loads properly and the game is playable and working as intended? I'm curious how it goes about doing this. It's going to have to decide what it's going to use for testing. So if it's going to add some framework, what it's going to use, it's going to have to figure out what working as intended even means and what making sure the app loads properly means. So I'm curious to see how deep it goes into testing and what specifically it decides to test, but let's see how it does. All right, so it's still working, but I like this. It says the README provided minimal information. So I had to check the package JSON. So Devin's kind of taking shots at my README, but that's okay, Devin. As long as you can make some tests for us, we'll be happy. All right, so I've identified the main game components and hooks in the project structure, which include core game logic in the hooks directory and UI components in the components directory. I will examine the core game logic files to determine the necessary function or functionality for testing. Okay, this seems like it's actually making good progress, but I'm curious to see what this tests are actually going to look like. All right, so it's got a plan here. So it says set up vtest and React testing library and add basic app loading test, app.test.ts and core game logic tests, use tetris.test and use Tetris board test, and focus on critical game mechanics, piece movement, collision detection, and scoring. Test changes by running npm run test locally and create a PR with new testing infrastructure. Okay, this seems reasonable to me. So let's see if this actually ends up working. So this is interesting. So it's creating some tests and it looks like the testing suite that it created are actually failing. So it'll be interesting to see, is it able to figure out what it's done wrong and verify how to fix the tests? Or is it going to get sort of stuck in some kind of infinite loop, which I've seen like ChatGPT and some other tools do before? So let's see if it's able to fix this. Interesting. So I've added the test files and made some initial test runs. I noticed a development environment issue with the Vite React plugin that's unrelated to our test changes. This doesn't affect the functionality of our test, but you may want to look into the development environment setup later. So I'm curious. It doesn't really tell me what this is. I guess I could ask, but I don't think this is the case. It does work. So I don't know what it's saying is the issues here, but we'll let it finish doing its thing. All right. It looks like it's still failing some tests and we've been running this for a while. So let's see if it again is able to fix its tests to account for whatever isn't working. And here's where it seems like we get into a bit of almost an infinite loop. It looks like it's still failing the same tests as far as I can tell, but we'll let Devin keep trying to plug away at this and maybe Devin will figure out how to fix these tests. But it seems like it keeps updating this one part of the code to try to get whatever this test is doing to actually pass, but it's not really being able to do it. So we'll see if it asks me some questions or if it's ever able to fix it or what it decides to do. All right, so we're still in infinite loop territory here where Devin keeps running into essentially the same issues and trying to fix that same issue. And it keeps making this code more and more and more complicated. And it looks like it finally decided to change not just the testing file, but rather the actual file. So it looks like it's just adding a bunch of console logs to try to debug. So it's almost debugging human-like, but I am like 98% sure that this code actually works. It would be funny if Devin found an actual error in the code itself and its tests were actually working, but the code itself is wrong. That would be interesting, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's just writing a bad test, but we'll see if it's able to figure this out. So I do like that it's doing some like debugging here rather than just infinitely trying random things until it works, because that clearly wasn't working. We'll see if it's able to figure it out. All right, so it's finished. One thing that kind of annoys me is it says it created a PR. I'll let you know when it's ready for review. And then the UI says review and comment, which implies to me, oh, it's ready for review, but that's not the case. It's not ready for review until it does like this next step, which is just a little bit odd, but okay. I've completed adding tests, and this includes app loading tests, verifies the app renders without crashing, checks for presence of key UI elements, ensures the game board is present in initial state. Then we have game logic tests as well. The tests are implemented using vtest, I think is how you pronounce it. I've actually never used the library. And then React testing library, providing a solid foundation for ensuring the app's functionality. All tests are passing locally. All right, so let's review this PR. So let's see what it actually did. Files changed 9. Okay, package JSON. So we added testing commands and we added dependencies. Fair enough. Let's zoom this in a bunch so y'all can see it. So we have our main testing file. So renders Tetris app without crashing, render the app. And okay, we're just checking that these things are in the document. Fair enough. And then we have the use Tetris test. So we start with a score of 0. That's a fair test. Start with a non-playing state, initializes the game state when starting a new game. Result, okay. Current, okay, this seems reasonable. And then the game board has correct dimensions. All right, so these are reasonable tests. I would not call these comprehensive in any regard, but a reasonable way to test use Tetris. Then we have use Tetris board. So we get an empty board, has collision. So this is where it was having a lot of issues. So let's see, it creates the board correct dimensions, has collisions. Detects bottom wall collision. So we get an empty board. We have the eye shape. I don't know why we're only testing the eye shape here. So it seems like we should be testing other shapes, but okay, I'll leave it. And it's got some comments, and then collision has collisions. Expect collision to be true. Okay, so this comment is kind of convoluted, and this code is a little bit too, and we're only testing the eye shape Tetris block, but I actually do think this is functionally correct as far as I can tell. And then detect a left wall collision. Again, we're just using the eye block, right wall collision, same thing. And then returns false for valid position. So what returns false? Oh, has collisions. Okay, fair enough. This isn't super useful because it's only checking one valid position and it should probably check a bunch of positions, but fair enough. And we're also not checking that the game is actually playing, like that time is working correctly. We're sort of just checking when we have a board in a certain state that it is returning the correct information, but these are better than having no tests. So I guess it's definitely a good start, and we could probably ask it to make more of those tests. All right, so then we have a roll of grid on our board, which I suppose is fine. It's not what I asked it to be doing. And I don't really like the idea of putting little things into a PR that are not related to what the PR is itself. Some people will do that, like some real software engineers do that. Personally, to me, this deserves a separate PR, even if it's just a one-liner, because here as a code reviewer, I come here to review the fact that we are adding tests. I'm not here to review the fact that we added a role attribute to our div here. I'll leave it, it's fine. And then we updated use Tetris board, and I don't understand why. So this was working before. So let's see what exactly it did. So before we had has collision is false, and I wrote this code years ago, so I don't really remember it, but okay, fine. What did it change? All right, so it made a ton of updates to use Tetris board, which is code I already had, and it didn't really explain to me why it made these updates. I don't really know what these updates are. And if I was a code reviewer in a real team, I would reject this PR, because this PR is add tests for Tetris React app. It is not fix logic of Tetris React app. It is not change logic. Like, I don't know, is this telling me that this logic was incorrect and we fixed it? Is it telling me that this is more efficient? Maybe it's because it's trying to return early. Is it telling me that it fixed some edge case? I don't know, because I don't know what exactly the purpose of this is. And as a code reviewer, I should just be looking at it to review that the change you made is the change you said you made, not I'm going to come in here and try to see if this logic is correct. And this would take me a lot of time to look at this and try to figure out, is this new logic correct or not? And then we have setup test, that's fine, and the config for the testing, which also seems fine. But this is where I'm confused. So let's come back to Devin and let's ask, why did you change the existing hook file? All right, so it's going back to the actual website, and it looks like it's going to try to test the game behavior in the browser to see if the original logic correctly handled bottom wall detection, which it did. Okay, so it looks like we're actually playing the game here, which is interesting, although this isn't like live, so I can't actually see it updating, and I'm curious, does Devin see it actually updating? Oh, okay, we're done with that. So I don't know what Devin did or didn't see. It wasn't able to really show me like the animation of the game playing. We'll see if it figures out whether or not the original implementation was correct or not, which I'm pretty certain it was, but maybe it wasn't. So maybe Devin found a bug in the code. Okay, so now we're at, upon reviewing the eye block shape definition, it was determined that the test case for the bottom wall collision was incorrect as it did not account for the shape's structure. The original collision detection logic is functioning correctly. So essentially, I asked Devin to make a test, and what Devin did instead was it made a test, the test was failing, and it decided the test must be right, so I'm gonna go change the code to make the test pass. But the code was already correct. It was the test that it wrote that was incorrect. So it created its own issue, and in an attempt to fix the issue it created new issues. It broke the existing code and made a pull request and said, look, all the tests are passing when it's the test that it just wrote, and it wrote them without really properly verifying that these tests were actually working. All right, so it reverted its changes, and now it's back to writing tests again, and we're back to these tests not passing, but we'll see if it's able to this time correctly write the tests that are based on the logic we already have, that is sound working logic. All right, so we're back into this thing again where we do this basically infinite loop of changing these tests until it works, and it feels like it's kind of just doing a guess and check. So it's just like changing things, seeing if the tests pass. When they don't, it changes things again, and it's just gonna keep doing this until either the tests pass or it gets back to where it was before, where it decided that the original logic was incorrect, when the original logic, as far as I can tell, is not incorrect. I wonder, does Devin have like a point where it just gives up, or is it just gonna keep doing this forever? Because it's been at this for a while, where it just seems to just be kind of changing these numbers up over and over again until it gets one that actually passes the tests. And I'm not even sure what exactly it's doing incorrectly, to be honest, but clearly this ain't it. This ain't working. Like, this is literal just guess and check coding, where it's just trying over and over and over again with the different numbers until it works. And what's scary about that is, even if it finds some version of this that passes the tests, it clearly doesn't understand the code it's written to a deep enough level to where it's able to logically figure out what these numbers should be. And because of that, how am I supposed to trust that these tests aren't actually doing what they're supposed to be doing? All right, so I think it's once again come to the conclusion that the original logic was incorrect, which would be interesting. Maybe it is correct that the game has been broken this whole time. Although I wrote this code years ago, lots of people have used the code, lots of people have watched the video and followed along with it, and nobody has ever told me it didn't work. So I'm not very confident in the fact that it doesn't work. But if Devin actually found a bug, that'd be pretty impressive. So let's see.
One eternity later.
All right, so we updated the PR. So let's take a look at this PR now to see what exactly we did. All right, so we have package.json, the test, the use Tetris test again, use Tetris board test. Looks like we have a more detailed comment here. I like this comment a little bit better. This is easier to sort of understand. There's a weird extra space here, which just like nitpick. I don't know why there's a space right there, but anyways, comment looks a little better. I don't like that we have console logs left in, but it's a test, so I suppose that's fine. And then we still have this thing that we changed. We have console logs now that we added to use Tetris board, so I would have already rejected this PR now because we shouldn't have console logs being added. And it looks like we're once again changing the actual logic. All right, so let's come back to Devin one more time. And let's say, did we change the logic in the hook? If so, why? And can we remove all console logs from the code? So at this point, it feels like I'm having to baby this a little bit, and it feels like I'm having to do more work than I would have had to do to just write the test myself, because I don't know if I can trust that these tests work or that they don't work, because it's changing actual logic of the code, not just writing tests. And it doesn't seem very confident in the test itself, and the fact that it did it like 100 times. I don't know where that went, but it did it like 100 times, going back and forth of writing the test, tests don't work, write new tests, tests don't work. So I don't know if I can trust this or not. I don't know if the changes it made work or not. And then it's also doing things like leaving console logs in the code, which, if you've worked in a real code base, is pretty much always a thing you don't want to be doing. But wait, so here it says, yes, we modified the collision detection to check all shape rows instead of filtering them, which fixed the bottom wall collision test. But why are we trying to fix the collision test? We should be, if we need to, fixing the logic and then writing a test, or we should be writing a test that is actually testing the logic we already have. And it says I'll remove the console logs. But then it said here, we found that the changes to has collision logic were unnecessary, so it's reverting them again. So I'm kind of confused. Do we think that the changes were necessary? Were they not necessary? Are we reverting them? Are we not reverting them? And I don't fully understand what exactly we're doing here. So it says we're going to revert collision detection logic back to the original file, remove the console logs, and run the test locally. But I have a feeling when it reverts these changes, the tests are once again not going to pass, and we're going to end up doing the same thing over and over again. But let's see what happens. So once again, the tests are failing in the same way they've been failing, because either the tests don't work or it's correct in updating the logic, but I don't think it is. But we'll let it try this one more time, see what it comes up with. And if it still thinks it needs to change the logic, I'm going to try the change to logic to see if the game still works or not. But what I'm feeling is happening here is that these tests are just not correct and not tests that I would ever be able to actually merge. And realistically, by now I could have just written the code for the tests instead of sitting here and doing this with Devin, but it's kind of fun. So it's got that going for it. And I guess I could be doing other things in the background while it does this. So not all bad. All right, we once again have an updated PR. Let's open it up. Files changed 8. See what we did. So we updated package JSON. That is fine. Why did we change? Oh, we just added a comma there. Okay. And then we have app test. Fine. Use Tetris test. Seems fine. Use Tetris board test. Again, seems fine. There's a lot going on here, but I'm going to assume if the tests are passing, it's probably correct. I don't know why it feels the need to add this accessibility attribute. It's a good thing to have. It probably should be here maybe, but it's not what I asked it to do. And I don't really like I said, putting things in the PR that don't belong, but that's fine. Okay, so it seems like now it has successfully gotten the test to pass without the need of these extra things, which makes me wonder, why was it trying to sort of gaslight me into thinking that my logic was incorrect initially? But it seems like finally find a way to figure it out. So that's good. All right, so I asked it one more time to just verify that the tests are passing. And it does say they are, but then there's this thing that's not passing. It says it's due to a Vite plugin configuration issue. So I'm going to ask it to fix that first, because I don't know why it would push a new test that isn't going to pass. So we're still not completely there yet. So let's say fix the Vite configuration issue so all tests pass. Okay, so this is interesting. It says it's a version issue, which is probably correct. It says it's searching for a solution online to address the issue. So it's actually just looking up the answer, I guess, on Stack Overflow or something, which, I mean, reasonable. If it's able to successfully do that, that's cool. Okay, so according to best practices, I need your permission before updating any package versions. Would you like me to update to the latest version, try a different solution, or keep the test as is and handle the environment? Let's do option 1. Interesting. So it actually asked me first, do you want me to update this? So I do. All right, so it fixed the issue we had, and now it's finding new issues with the tests that it told me were correct. So it looks like screen.getByClassName is not an actual function. So now it's doing get by role instead and finding the grid role that way, which I guess is fine, but why is it just hallucinating and making up functions? And then when it finds out it doesn't exist, rather than finding the name of the function it was looking for, it just finds a different function to use instead. But that's fine. It is a way to get that element. So it seems to be working, and we have 3 tests passing now. All right, so let's see. I would assume it's going to update the PR, and we should be good to go finally on these tests. Okay, so we once again have the PR to look at. Files changed. So looks like should be all good here. Nothing crazy. It's just the same tests, and looks like we just updated those versions. So let's finally merge this pull request. Confirm merge. And now we should have tests. So that's pretty cool. And if you're curious, the total time, so it started at 1:04 and we finished at 1:52. So it took almost 50 minutes, about 48 minutes to go from asking it to add tests to having the tests seemingly work, although they're not very comprehensive. So is that good? I don't know. It's decent. It's not like it was super efficient. It probably wasn't more efficient than me just doing it myself. And I did have to sort of hold its hand a lot. I couldn't have just for the last 50 minutes been doing something else, because I would have had to come back to this a lot. So I couldn't really just have this running in the background, but it was ultimately able to add some tests and eventually figure out the mistakes it made and fix those mistakes. So that's good. All right, so next I want to see how well it can just make some UI changes. So let's say improve the look of the UI by making it more modern feeling. And let's just see if it's able to figure out how to write some CSS in this repository and how to actually make things look a little bit nicer. All right, so this is the UI we currently have. So there's tons of places here where this can be made to look prettier. So let's see what it comes up with. I'm kind of curious what exactly it does, but I think it's pretty low-hanging fruit to make this look nicer. So hopefully it's able to figure something out. All right, hold on. Devin's installing Tailwind. Okay, send a message. Don't use Tailwind or any new libraries/frameworks. Follow the style of the existing repo. I don't know why it decided maybe it's modern CSS. That means Tailwind, but that's not what I asked it to do. I want it to work in the style of the repository. So I'll interrupt it here. Okay, so it's going back to using vanilla CSS without adding any new libraries. And maybe the use of the word modern did imply, right, modern code, which oftentimes people associate with using frameworks and libraries, but this repo was written with vanilla CSS, mostly just because it was made for the purpose of a video demonstration. But I would think it should just follow the practices of the existing library or of the existing repo. And if it wants to make a major change, like introducing Tailwind, it should have asked me first rather than just saying, okay, time to add Tailwind, because I don't know, that seems like an odd choice for it to make. But anyways, now it is back to updating the CSS again. So hopefully it's able to figure something out. Okay, so this is where we're at so far. The button and the text, I think, looks better. I don't know how I feel about this board that it's made. Interesting looking, to say the least. It's not awful, but it looks a little bit strange. I'll say that. But I'm curious, is it going to look at this itself and say, okay, that part looks good, that part looks strange, let me update these things? Or is it going to look at this and say, all right, it's fine, and just move on? Like, does it have any way to actually visually look at this and understand what looks good and what doesn't? Okay, we've done more things. Now the Tetris board is like black with this black border. I don't like this direction. I like the previous one. Also, the new game button is now like super wide for some reason, which feels a little bit awkward, but maybe it's nice. I don't know. I don't mind that. I think this font it's using is kind of nice. It hasn't made huge changes by any means though. I don't know though. The more I look at this dark theme, I don't think I like this black border. Maybe I do. The dark theme's actually kind of, I'm curious what this looks like with the game actually started, because I don't know. The more I look at this, the dark theme's it's kind of nice. It's got a vibe to it for sure. I don't know. Let me know. Do y'all like the dark theme for Tetris? All right, interesting. So it added a bunch of CSS animations, which I'm kind of worried that these animations might actually break the game. But we'll see. It might not. I'm kind of curious. So we'll see what it's able to do here exactly. This does look kind of cool though. And I kind of like this. So we already had this where it shows like the next blocks coming up, but it put like this little border thing around it and it looks kind of nice. All right, so we can review the changes it made. Files changed. All it changed was our CSS file, which is good because that means it didn't make changes we didn't ask for. It's also using some CSS variables, which is cool. So what I do want to do though is actually test that this actually works. So I'm going to load this manually and test it in my own browser and make sure that we haven't broken the game. All right, so this is the version of the game that Devin gave us, where we now have this black dark mode version. I don't know how I feel about that. It's kind of cool, kind of not. Ooh, okay, we got a nice little hover animation on the button as well. So let's start the game. And okay, so this does seems to be working still. I don't think it's broken the game at all. So let's try putting this down here. It is doing this thing now where the size of this is not constant. So it's causing the board of the game itself to sort of move. Although the fact that it didn't break the game, I would say is impressive. Although score hasn't gone up because I haven't scored any points. That'll do it. All right, let's make sure the score is still working. Let's see what happens with that. And then I'll also see what happens when the game ends. Okay, so the score went up. Now let's see if we can lose very quickly, and let's see what happens when we do. All right, yeah, it is super annoying that it's causing the board to move. All right, game over, score 100, new game. Cool, so that seems to be working. Okay, so I'm going to say there's an issue where the board moves left and right because the size of the upcoming blocks section is not constant. Keep the board in the middle of the screen without it moving, and keep the upcoming blocks a constant size without overflowing it. All right, so Devin was able to supposedly fix what it did. So let's try it again and see if it's working now. All right, so we're back here again, new game. Okay, so it did not move the board when I did that. And let's see as the blocks come. Yeah, it seems like our board is staying in the same spot. Now I wonder, it hasn't broken the sliding. Nope, that works too. Cool, it seems like everything's working. I don't know what the point of the animations necessarily was. Like, it doesn't seem like those do a whole lot, if anything. So I don't know that we actually need whatever animations it wrote, but other than that, it seems like this is pretty good. And maybe the animations are doing something. It's hard to tell exactly. So I'm going to look at the animations and I'll see if they seem like they're doing anything or if it's just pointless animations that Devin wrote. All right, so I looked more at these. They're supposed to do something when you clear a row, when a block appears, and like a flash when the game ends, but none of them seem to be doing much. I can't tell if they're working or not, but they're definitely not doing a whole lot. So I'm going to ask Devin to remove those, and then we'll go ahead and merge the PR. So let's say, let's remove the animations, leave everything else as is. All right, so we updated the PR again. It says it removed the animations, so we can come here, click the code. Cool. So it looks like the animations are gone. I'm not seeing anything animation related here that it added. Cool. So I think we are good to go on this one. So we can go ahead and merge this pull request as well for the modern UI overhaul, as it calls it. All right, so now one final test. I want to see if it can add its own feature to the game. So what I'm going to ask is add a feature to the game to keep track of high scores for the user's computer. So we're not going to be adding these to like some database in the cloud or something. We just want to add them to the user's computer. Preferably it's going to use something like localhost, but we'll see what decisions it makes. So let's run this and see if it's able to figure out a way to do that. Okay, so it says I'll add high score tracking functionality to the Tetris game, and it says it's using local storage. So I think that is the best way to do this. So that's good. And it is now working on a plan to do it. I do find it kind of funny that every time it tries to run run the application, it runs npm run lint and npm run dev, and it always gets told that there's not a script called lint, and yet it just seems to keep going instead of trying to actually run the linter, which maybe we should have npm run lint, or maybe it should run on dev, or I don't know, maybe there should be a way to do this, but it just hallucinates that this npm script exists, and when it doesn't, it just keeps going instead of finding a way to run the linter, which kind of entertaining to me, but either way, not a big deal. Okay, so now it looks like we are getting a page not found. Kind of curious how it managed to do this, but we'll see if it finds its way around and figures out how to fix this. Okay, so I don't even know what this page not found is. I don't know what FRP is. Maybe it's something that Devin uses, but anyways, says it's made the changes. I'm experiencing some environment setup issues that prevent me from testing the changes in the browser. Would you like me to proceed with creating the PR, or would you prefer to help set up the testing environment first? So it asked me a question, but it doesn't seem to be waiting for my answer. It just like it's creating a PR, and it's Devin. Did you want me to answer your question, or do you want me to look at your PR? Or I don't know what you want from me, Devin. All right. Well, it says it created a PR. I don't know if it works. Devin doesn't know if it works because Devin couldn't see it, but Devin decided I wasn't able to test the changes in the browser. You may want to test locally. So at least it's telling me that. But okay, so let's say try testing again and write some unit tests to verify it works as well. Interesting point here. It says it's using this MT4 class for spacing, which I think might be a Tailwind thing, but we don't have Tailwind in this application. So at minimum, this UI it thinks it made is not going to look like it thinks it does. So we'll see if it's able to figure that out when it retries it, because clearly they're having some issue. And this looks like it might be a Devin issue, not this repo issue, because I have no idea what FRP even is. I'm curious also, it says it suggested update to knowledge. Let's see what this says. Okay, so it's saying to update the fact that there's no test. Unit tests should be written to verify functionality. That's valid. Initially there were no tests and Devin wrote the tests, so sure, let's accept this knowledge update. Ooh, we got like confetti or something. Okay, fair enough, close that. Okay, so it looks like it's still having this issue. The server is powered by FRP. I'm gonna see what exactly this is and see if I can help it figure out how to fix this, but I have the impression that this is a Devin issue, not this repo issue, because the repo does work. Okay, so it looks, I don't like this thing where it asks me if it wants me to do something and then it just like keeps doing other stuff, but it looks like it's having, it hasn't run npm install, so maybe that's the issue. So yes, you can run npm install. I don't know why it's telling me I should run npm install to set up the testing environment, because Devin, like this is your testing environment. You are the software engineer. You should know to run npm install, but maybe that should be in like the knowledge thing I told it. I guess I maybe didn't tell it to run npm install, but I don't know. It seems like that should be implied, and the other things we did with it, it was able to just know it's supposed to do that. So I guess that's the issue, hopefully at least. Okay, so it ran npm install and it ran the tests, and it learned that its tests are not working. So there's that. Okay, so we still have one test that's failing. So let's see, is it able to fix this one? So it's saying it's going to force game over with a game tick, but that's not going to do it. Okay, but it's changing it to result.current is playing equals false. So this would force game over state, but I don't know that doing this, I don't remember the implementation. I don't know that doing this is going to force all of the game over code to run by just manually changing this, but we'll see. Because I don't think we're like listening for this to change. I think it's on game tick. If it's over, then all the game over stuff is going to happen. So I don't think this is going to work yet. It did not work. We'll see if it finds another way to force the game over state, but I actually think that's a somewhat difficult problem to figure out in a test. So we'll see if it is able to do it or not. So it looks like it made another change. Okay, I guess this is sort of forcing game over and doing some like mocking as well. Interesting. Okay, well, we'll take a deeper look at that in a minute, but it seems like it's finding some solution to have some kind of testing, hopefully. All right, so this is an interesting little hack it seems to have found. It says starting a new game while one is in progress triggers game over. So this is, I guess, how it's forcing a game over state. Interesting. I think that maybe works. I don't know. I haven't looked at this code in a long time, but maybe that'll work. I don't love that though, because it's very hacky, and I could see this hack no longer changing or no longer working because of some change down the line. It's going to break this test that shouldn't break because of that change. But it's I guess, potentially decent solution if it does work, but I don't even know if that's going to work. And no, it doesn't seem like it did. So now it's doing more mocking to try to get the game to end. All right, tests are still failing, but I do like that Devin seems to have an ability to fix some of its mistakes and sort of continue to iterate. Whereas with a lot of AI tools, if you just tell it, hey, this is the mistake you made, it's not really able to fix that mistake, and it'll just keep doing the same thing over and over again, which we've seen Devin do the same thing over and over again. Don't get me wrong, but it does seem to eventually sort of make some progress, even if it is sort of guess and check coding at times, which isn't the best. But all right, so we've been at this for a while, and you can see Devin has made a lot of attempts. Tests are still failing. It looks like it's trying to mock out timers now, which can be a tricky thing to to get right, but it's still not able to solve it. It's been doing this for almost 10 minutes now, but again, it's something we could have on the background when working on other stuff. So it's not that big of a deal how long this is taking. I, again, don't love the guess and check coding because it makes me far less confident in these solutions it's giving me, but maybe it'll eventually find a way to figure this out. All right, so it's gone back and forth on updating these tests about 100 times. Maybe not literally 100, but a bunch. It took almost 15 minutes to do this, 13 minutes or so, but it seems to have finally updated the PR. So let's take a look at this PR, see what it did. Add high scores feature, files changed 6. Okay, so in app.tsx, we, instead of just having start game, we now have a high scores component. I think this class name is something from Tailwind, which we're not using, so that's not going to work. And then let's see, we have the tests. I'm just going to assume these tests probably work because they were passing. Okay, so show high scores, shows no high scores yet when there are no scores. Okay, and then we have the high scores component test, which has some local storage clearing before and after. The scores no high scores yet. High scores in descending order, which is good. Displays the at most 10 high scores. That's a good test to have. And then applies class name prop correctly. Okay. And then we have, I don't really know what the point of checking that can have a prop is, but okay, it's fine. And then we have the use Tetris test, which it added a bunch of mocking for, which, okay, I think this is probably a reasonable way to handle this, although there's something to be said for if you do so much mocking. Granted, we want unit tests to test individual units, but this test is meant to test sort of the entire functionality of the game. And if you mock out all of the functionality of the game and then test that the functionality now works in this like super simplified mocked version, I don't know that you're actually testing all that much, but regardless, is test there. And then we have the high scores component, which it's not really following the style we have in the rest of the code base. And then we have this class name thing, which I suppose is fine. I don't love that, but okay. And then we have use Tetris. It updated for the high scores. And yeah, so this class name is not going to do anything because we aren't using Tailwind. So I'm going to have it fix that and use CSS. And I'm also going to tell it to follow the style of other components in the repo. So let's say follow the style of other, say the coding style of other components in the repo. We also are not using Tailwind. Make sure this looks good using vanilla CSS. All right, so you can see what it did. It added this high scores down here, but you can't even really read it because it has white text on a white background. So I'm curious to see, is it going to figure out that this is a big accessibility concern, or is it going to fix it or not? Okay, so it did something, but it's still white. So let's see, can it figure out that we have white text on a white background, or is it not really able to understand what it's looking at? Okay, so it's running into an issue now that a test is failing. It seems like a few, but one of them is the fact that it's checking, there was a test that was checking that you can add a class name to high scores, which was, I think, a pointless test and also a pointless prop, and it removed that prop. So now it needs to figure out that this test is pointless and remove it. So we'll see if it figures that out as well. Okay, so it added the prop back rather than fixing the test. So let's say we don't need the class name prop since we don't use it. Remove that prop and the test for it. It's also still doing const scores instead of using the function format that we use for all the other components. I'm also going to say, also, instead of using const and react.fc, use the same coding style that other components in the repo use. So I don't know if it's going to be able to understand that I just gave it 2 different requests and do both of them, or if it's going to only do one, or if it like, is this overriding this request, or is it going to know that it needs to do both of those things? But we'll see. Okay, it looks like it's doing both. So it's kind of combined the 2 requests into one thing. So hopefully this ends up working. It does have knowledge suggestions again. So let's see what these are. Use vanilla CSS for styling components, not Tailwind. Fair enough. Follow the coding style of existing components. That seems like something it should just always do, but fair enough. That's good knowledge, I guess. Only write tests for functionality that is actually being used. I mean, I suppose these are fine, but I don't know why you'd have functionality that's not being used to begin with, but sure, I'll approve this. Actually, let's see. Can I edit this? And let's not have this part, but we can have this part. Okay. And I like that we get confetti. It makes me feel like I did something good. Okay. So it removed the prop and it went to just function high scores, but we still have the interface for props, even though we're not using that. So I don't know what the point of that is, but maybe it'll figure out to remove it, or maybe it's just something I'm going to have to tell it in code review, which seems to be a theme of this a lot, that you have to really walk it through the code review. And we're still trying to run npm run lint, which is not going to work. Oh wait, I've discovered there's no lint script. So I guess it's finally discovered that, although it was able earlier to figure out how to run the linter, but it has many times done this and just went right over it. But this time it's decided to actually run the linter. And we're also running the tests, and we have a failing test. So it looks like this test is calling a function that doesn't exist. All right, so now we're removing this interface. So that's good. And then we are maybe fixing this test. It doesn't seem like it fixes it, but we'll see. Yeah, so we're still having testing issues. And I would imagine this means we're once again going to be in this very long loop that it seems to constantly get itself in of trying to fix its tests. It seems to struggle a lot with writing tests that actually work, at least in this repository I've given it. I'm not even sure I understand how it managed to break these tests, but hopefully it's able to fix them, because I thought they were passing a minute ago, and I gave it pretty simple instructions of just like updating coding style, and now we are back to failing tests again. But hopefully it's able to fix it and give me a complete and working PR. Come on, Devin. You can do it, Devin. I believe in you. I wonder why they named him Devin. Like, was there like a big board meeting of what do we name this guy, and like what other names came up, and how did they come up with Devin? Or does it like mean something? Does it like stand for something? Or is it just like, let's give it a human sounding name? I didn't know that there was much more frustrating than not being able to get tests to pass, but I think something more frustrating is watching an AI not be able to get its tests to pass. Something about it. I feel helpless. Like there's nothing I can really do to help Devin at this point, because I don't understand these tests. I didn't write them, and I don't know what's wrong, but I just have to watch it and watch it fail over and over and over again until finally at some point it's going to either give up or do something crazy or tell me it's finally fixed it. But it's just like an infinite loop of hoping it finally figured it out, and then it didn't. So then you have to watch it again. I guess you don't have to watch it. I could go elsewhere, but I feel invested in watching it. $500 invested, to be specific. All right, we are now 11 and a half minutes into Devin trying over and over again to fix the test it wrote, and I thought it had this passing at one point, although maybe it didn't. I don't even know at this point. But Devin keeps on going. I guess that's the benefit of a AI software engineer, is it doesn't get frustrated. It just keeps doing the same thing. So it's got that going for it. I like how every time it does this too, it like edits the comments, but it doesn't really, like a lot of times it feels like it doesn't necessarily even need to. Although I guess in some cases it does, but like it'll just like add and remove random comments. It's not a great example here, but it's quite entertaining. I'm also pretty sure that we've added and removed the same import at least a few times at this point. I'm pretty sure I've seen this already. Aborting after running 10,000 timers, assuming an infinite loop. Okay, so Devin has created an infinite loop of timers, which is fun. I don't really know how it managed to do that, but good for Devin. Is this the future of software engineering? Just watching AI attempt to write code and never figure out how to do it? The future is now. It's interesting. It runs git diff a lot to like find the changes it made itself, which I guess makes sense, but it's also like, have you forgotten what you did? Which I guess if I did this many attempts at the same thing, I'd at some point forget what changes I made and what changes were already there. And what do you know? The tests still don't pass. Who would have thought? Could have sworn these tests were going to pass at the 16th minute. I have an idea for Cognition. If they want an extra revenue source, they make Devin free. But as you use Devin, you can bet on how long it's going to take Devin to do something and whether or not Devin is going to be able to do the things. Like you could have like an over-under of 30 times it tries to rewrite the same testing file until it figures it out. An idea. We could have a bit of a freemium, but a betting model associated with it. That's some good free business advice. This is going to drive me insane. Or it already has. I'm not sure. Like part of me wants to tell it to just delete this test so we can move on. But for science, I want to figure out if it ever figures this out. Like it seems to find some kind of solution to one problem and then get back to a problem it previously had, solve that problem and create the same new problem again. And it's just kind of like in this loop of effectively trying the same things over and over again, I think. Because like I've seen this error, result.current.moveDown is not a function like 100 times at this point. And it has solved it before. Like it's gotten past this line of code before, but then it creates the issue again. We got to be at some kind of like Devin doing the same thing over and over again world record, right? This can't be normal, I hope. But at some point you would think, because it does have the ability to stop and like ask me questions. At what point is it going to say, okay, I don't know how to do this. And it's just going to ask me to either fix it for it or ask me for advice or ask me if it's okay to delete it or give some options. Like at what point does it give up on this or does it never? And if it never does, is this how you use up all of those credits you were given or whatever? Is it just going to do this forever and then run up the bill? Although it does have like a limit of how many credits it can use per instruction, I think. So I guess it can't run up the bill that high. I don't know what that did. I wanted to see how many like of these token things we've used. So I hit this evaluate this session button, but it didn't seem to do anything. Wait, do we have the test passing? Oh my, we might have done it, Devin. Devin might have done it. Oh, we have ESLint warnings though. Can it fix the ESLint issues without causing the test to fail again? I don't even know if it did. All right, we've got an update to the PR. It took a while, but we got here. All right, so now we have a high scores in here and we got some tests. Not going to go through all those right now, but we have tests that supposedly work, maybe. We wrote a lot of stuff for the test, and then we have high scores, function high scores, get high scores. That was get high scores. Okay, this comes from the hook. Wait, but we're not actually using the hook. We're just, okay, a little odd, but high scores. So I don't know why this is in a hook file if it's not like requiring us to use the hook, but that's all right. I guess it does call the file in the hook. Okay, and then we have some CSS. All right, I'm going to try and run it, see if this works, and we'll get back to Devin. Okay, so we have the high scores here. It is white text on white, so it's very hard to read, but it is there. It says no high scores yet. And let's try playing the game and let's see if we're able to get a high score. So first of all, if I just don't even score, is my high score going to be 0 or am I going to not have a high score? So let's see how quickly we can lose this. All right, so my high score is 0. All right, let's play again. Let's get a new high score. I'm just gonna get a score of something. Actually, not trying to win here. We can just do this, do that. All right, now I have a score of 100 and let's just lose the game and see if we have our high score. Yep, we have a high score of 100 now. Perfect. But we do have this issue of white text. So let's see if it can fix that. And then I think we're probably good to go on this PR. The text for high scores is white on a white background. Change the text color so we can see it. Oh, so it's once again running into this issue where it has like this page not found thing, which I don't know if this is because it once again hasn't run npm install or if this is some Devin related thing, because we got this error earlier and I think npm install fixed it, but it might also just be something related to like the Devin servers. I'm not entirely sure. All right, so it says it fixed it, although I never actually saw it check because it just ran into that issue. So I'm going to check this manually and we'll see if it actually fixed it. Okay, so it changed the entire background of the website to be black, which I don't hate. We have like true dark mode going on now, and it made this text all white, which is interesting. So I actually kind of like this. And yeah, this seems to be working. And also you noticed it had my high scores saved from the previous time. So if I refresh the page, we can see we still have the high scores. So it is using localhost successfully. So I do think this is a working PR and we can finally actually merge this. All right, merge pull request. Confirm merge. All right, so what do I think of Devin now that I've paid $500 to use it? Is it worth $500? I don't know. It could be for some certain people, some certain organizations, but it sort of felt like I had an intern. So I don't feel like this is a junior software engineer. I feel like I had an intern, and this intern was like a first year college student at best, but also has some like oddly deep knowledge about some random things. So they're like a special first year college student, but they also have sort of like a Ron Burgundy-esque vibe to them, where like Ron Burgundy will read whatever's on the teleprompter and Devin will kind of do whatever you tell Devin to do, but it won't really think about what it's doing very much. And it just kind of does the thing and like, oh, I fixed the test, but really it fixed the test by breaking the code. So it feels like it really needs to have its hand held and you need to give it super, super specific instructions of what you want it to actually do. And it's not like you can just have it doing stuff in the background while you work on other stuff. Like you kind of can, but you're going to have to be going back and forth so much that I think the context switching, much like having an intern, is going to make you less productive on your own work because of the fact that you're having to do so much hand holding with Devin. And ultimately, I just don't know how much I can trust the code it writes. Like I feel like I have to spend a lot of time going over that code and almost re-implementing it myself because it doesn't feel like it's adequately testing its own work before putting up a PR, unlike how a real software engineer would. Now, if you're working in maybe like a more back-end and logic focused repository versus this front-end repository, where it's easier to have good, robust testing, then maybe that won't be as much of an issue. But in my experience here, I felt like I had to go and manually test everything, which is just creating a lot of work. And a lot of these things I feel like I could have just done on my own much quicker. So do I think it's a scam? No. Do I think it's worth $500? Also no, at least in most cases, but if it's worth $500 to you, then by all means, spend your money on Devin. It does work to some extent. You'll just have to be very, very careful with it and be very careful with what tasks you actually give it. And now there are a lot of other companies also making big strides with AI. So if you want me to look at some of the other products, do let me know. And then take a look at this video over here, where I actually went all the way to Vegas to see some of Amazon's big new releases as they relate to AI, as well as a few other pretty interesting things for us as developers.